The first thing I noticed when I woke up was the silence. Not the peaceful kind you get early in the morning, but the wrong kind, the kind that presses against your ears and makes you suddenly aware that something isn't right. No traffic outside my apartment window. No hum of distant generators. No buzz of notifications or vibration from my phone on the nightstand. That was the second thing I noticed. My phone was gone. I sat up too quickly, heart pounding, scanning the small bedroom. The sheets were twisted around my legs like I'd been wrestling with something in my sleep. My lamp was still on, casting a dull yellow glow over the room, but the air felt heavier.
Charged.
Like right before a thunderstorm breaks. Okay, I muttered. This is new. I checked under the pillow. Nothing. The floor beside the bed. Empty. The charger cable dangled uselessly from the wall outlet, swaying slightly as if it had been unplugged recently. I knew I hadn't moved it. I lived alone. No roommates. No pets. And I was the kind of person who panicked if my phone wasn't in the exact place I left it. Losing it wasn't just annoying, it was unthinkable. I swung my legs off the bed and froze. There were footprints on the floor. Bare footprints.
Small.
Narrow. Definitely not mine. They shimmered faintly, like frost patterns on glass, and then, right in front of my eyes, they faded away. I swallowed hard. This is not a dream, I whispered. I tried to laugh it off. Sleepwalking? Hallucinations? Maybe stress had finally cracked my brain. I worked nights at a data recovery lab, restoring corrupted files and broken devices for corporate clients who paid obscene amounts of money to get back what they'd lost. I'd seen enough scrambled data to know the mind could glitch too. Still, my instincts were screaming. I grabbed the metal flashlight from my desk drawer, the heavy one I kept just in case, and stepped into the hallway. The lights flickered on as usual, but the apartment felt different. Warmer. Like someone had been here for a while. Then I saw her. She stood in my kitchen, holding my phone with both hands, staring at it like it was the most fascinating thing she'd ever seen. She wasn't human. Not exactly. She looked like a girl, maybe 19 or 20, shorter than me by a head, with pale blue skin that shimmered softly, almost translucent. Her hair was long and white, flowing down her back like strands of moonlight. Thin, glowing lines traced patterns along her arms and neck, pulsing gently as if her body had its own heartbeat of light. She wore a simple, form-fitting suit that looked grown rather than stitched, the surface shifting colors subtly as she moved. And her eyes. They were enormous, deep violet, curious. She looked up when I gasped. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then she smiled. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't smug. It was delighted. Like a child who'd just solved a puzzle and couldn't wait to share the answer. I hope you do not require this immediately, she said, her voice soft, melodic, perfectly accented. I was almost finished. I raised the flashlight, hands shaking.
Put
the phone down. She blinked, slowly, then tilted her head. Is this a weapon? She asked. No, I snapped. But that might be. Her smile widened, not mockingly, but with fascination. You are afraid, she observed. I apologize. That was not my intention. She set the phone gently on the counter and took a step back, hands open. I am called Lyra. I should have run.
Called the police.
Screamed. Done something rational. Instead, I said, how did you get into my apartment? She glanced around. Your dwelling was unsecured. My door was locked. She hesitated. It was locked in a way you consider locked. That answer did not help. I lowered the flashlight slightly, but didn't drop it. Why are you here? Her gaze returned to the phone, longing flickering across her features. Because of that? Because of my phone? Yes. I snorted despite myself. You broke into my place to steal a smartphone? She shook her head.
No.
I borrowed it. I stared at her. She continued, voice earnest. Your device is extraordinary. It contains memories, knowledge, connections, entire social structures compressed into light and metal. Where I come from, such an object would be restricted. Where exactly do you come from? I asked carefully. She smiled again. That same smile.
Soft.
Knowing. Not here. The rational part of my brain was still screaming that this was impossible. Aliens didn't just wander into apartments and steal phones. But the rest of me, the part that noticed the way the air vibrated faintly around her, the way my phone's screen lit up without her touching it, knew this was real. Why me? I asked. Lyra's expression shifted, becoming serious. Because you were not supposed to notice. That's comforting. She looked genuinely apologetic. I am a field observer. I study emerging civilizations. Your species is volatile.
Wow.
Thanks. You create wonders, she continued, and destroy yourselves with them just as quickly. Your devices, your networks, accelerate that process. So you steal phones? I observe, she corrected. I copy. I learn. I felt anger flare beneath my fear. By breaking into my home? Yes. At least you're honest. Silence settled between us. The lights hummed softly overhead. Finally, I asked, Are you going to give it back? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. You're not done, I said. No, I rubbed my face. This is insane. She watched me intently. You are calmer than projected. I processed shock by sarcasm. I said, So, what did you find so interesting in my phone? Her eyes lit up. You. I stiffened. Me?
Yes.
Your messages. Your searches. Your patterns. You are lonely. I bristled. You went through my phone? I needed context. Context for what? For understanding why you continue. That hit harder than I expected. I sank into a chair at the kitchen table. You broke into my apartment, stole my phone, and psychoanalyzed me. Yes. I laughed. It came out sharp and tired. You aliens really know how to make a first impression. Lyra approached slowly, cautiously, as if afraid I'd bolt. You question your purpose, she said softly. You seek connection through screens because you fear vulnerability in physical presence. I looked away. You don't know me. I know what your device shows me, she replied. And I know what it does not. I glanced back at her. And what's that? She smiled again. Your courage. Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. Over the next hour, an hour I couldn't explain to anyone later, we talked. She told me about her people, the Ilari, beings who existed partially in dimensions humanity hadn't yet mapped. They'd been watching Earth for centuries, intervening only to prevent extinction-level events. Observing. Cataloging. My phone, she explained, was a microcosm of humanity. Fear, hope, love, anger, curiosity, all compressed into a glowing rectangle. You carry your souls in your pockets, she said. That's depressing, I replied. Yes, she agreed. And beautiful. I learned she wasn't supposed to interact directly with humans. She wasn't even supposed to be visible. But something about my device, about the way I used it, the things I searched at 3 a.m, had caught her attention. You asked if anyone would notice if you disappeared, she said quietly. My throat went dry. You read that? Yes. And I challenged. She met my gaze. I would. The weight of that answer hung between us. Finally, she returned my phone. When my fingers wrapped around it, it felt heavier than before. More important, I have compromised my mission, she said. They will retrieve me soon.
Who?
My superiors. And then what? I asked. They will erase this interaction from your memory. Panic flared. Wait, what? It is standard protocol. I stood abruptly.
No.
You can't just, she smiled, sad this time. You will be safe. I don't want to forget, I said. She stepped closer. Memory is not the only way to change someone. I didn't know what to say. The air around her began to glow brighter, humming with energy. They are coming, she whispered. I swallowed. So that's it. She hesitated, then reached out and gently touched my phone screen. Look at this when you doubt yourself, she said. A new image appeared, a simple symbol glowing faintly, unfamiliar yet comforting. What is it? I asked. A reminder, she replied, that you were seen. Light enveloped her, wrapping around her form like a cocoon. The last thing I saw was her smile, soft, genuine, filled with something dangerously close to affection. Then she was gone. I woke up on my kitchen floor, phone buzzing in my hand. A notification blinked on the screen. Low battery. I checked the time. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows. Everything looked normal. Too normal. For a moment, I thought it had all been a dream. Then I opened my gallery. At the bottom of the images was a single photo I didn't remember taking. A glowing symbol. And for just a second, I thought I smelled ozone and heard a soft, melodic laugh. My phone was gone once, but the alien girl's smile explained everything. For 3 days after Lyra vanished, I tried to convince myself it had been a stress dream. I went to work. I answered emails. I nodded along in conversations I didn't remember starting. But everything felt slightly misaligned, like reality had shifted half an inch to the left and never bothered correcting itself. My phone never left my hand. The symbol she'd left behind pulsed faintly on the screen whenever I stared at it too long. Not glowing, more like breathing. Expanding. Contracting. I didn't tell anyone. Because how do you explain that an alien girl broke into your apartment, stole your phone, dismantled your sense of purpose, and then disappeared into light? On the 4th night, the power went out. Not just in my apartment. Everywhere. The city outside my window went dark in a single, synchronized instant. No emergency lights. No backup generators. No sirens. Just silence. The symbol on my phone flared to life. My screen filled with unfamiliar constellations, rotating slowly, aligning themselves into patterns that made my head ache if I focused too hard. Then a message appeared. Are you willing to remember? My heart slammed against my ribs. I never forgot, I whispered. The air in my living room rippled, folding inward like fabric pulled through a ring. Light bled through the tear, soft and violet. And Lyra stepped through. She looked weaker. The glow along her skin flickered unevenly, and her smile, when she saw me, was strained but real. They tried to erase you, she said. They failed. I crossed the room in 2 steps. You're not supposed to be here. I chose to be, she replied. Behind her, the tear widened. Shapes moved within it, tall, angular silhouettes made of shifting geometry and cold light. The Ilari Council does not permit attachments, Lyra said quietly. They believe observation must be sterile. And you disagreed, I said. Yes. The silhouettes advanced. They will shut down your networks, she continued. Your satellites. Your grids. They will call it a solar anomaly. Humanity will survive, but fractured. I looked at my phone. And this symbol? It is an interface, she said. A bridge. Your device is already half of what my people use. That is why it fascinated me. Lyra, I said, voice tight. What are you asking me? She met my eyes. Really met them. To choose, she said. As I did. The air shook as one of the figures reached through the tear, its presence crushing, absolute. Lyra placed her hand over mine, warm and solid and real. If you activate the bridge, she said, they will have to negotiate. Humanity will no longer be unseen. And the cost? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Change, she said finally.
Fear.
Wonder. Responsibility. I laughed softly. Sounds like us. The figure lunged. I tapped the symbol. Light exploded outward. Not destructive, but expansive. Information poured through me. Languages, star maps, histories older than Earth's oceans. I felt humanity's noise surge outward in response. Billions of signals, voices, hopes, and contradictions screaming we are here. The silhouettes recoiled. The tear stabilized. Silence fell. When my vision cleared, the figures were gone. So was the tear. Only Lyra remained. She sagged slightly, catching herself on the edge of the table. You did it, she breathed. So did you, I said. Outside, lights flickered back on across the city, one by one. The world hadn't ended, but it had changed. What happens now? I asked. She smiled, the same smile that had started everything. Now, she said, they will watch you honestly. And She hesitated. I am no longer an observer. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. Then what are you? Her eyes softened.
Learning, she said.
The news would later call it the night of silence. Scientists would argue for decades about unexplained data spikes and impossible readings. Conspiracy theories would flourish, but nothing would ever quite go back to the way it was. Sometimes, late at night, when my phone buzzed without a notification, I'd look up and find Lyra standing by the window, watching the stars like she was seeing old friends. My phone was gone once, but when the alien girl smiled, humanity stopped being alone.